What a wild ride it's been. From Sony to Marvel, and now Spider-Man is back in the MCU. Well, kind of. Let's talk about it. Hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Nerd News. I'm your host, Chris Chavis, and here I'm going to talk about news that's curated for you, nerds. And man, did this news break a couple of days ago, and I was just waiting for a little bit more information to come out before I made a video about this, and here we are. So if you don't remember, after Spider-Man Far From Home, Sony and Marvel were trying to restructure their deal to have Spider-Man continue being in the MCU. And Sony was pretty much like, yes, okay, we will loan you Spider-Man, but we need to restructure how much money we're gonna get from your billions of dollars that you'll get from this movie. Yeah, okay, Sony, well, I don't know about this. So the two companies couldn't get along and they couldn't find a deal. They both were wanting too much money and they were both greedy. Sony and Marvel were pretty much both greedy. They're both to blame with this. Yes, they were. So what ended up happening was Sony was like, okay, well, forget your deal. That's them pushing the paper back to them, the documents. And what ended up happening was Sony taking Spider-Man, and they're like, you know what? You can't play with him. He's going to be in our toy box now. But now Sony saw the amazingly crazy backlash from us, the fans, and they probably realized, okay, this movie is Far From Home and Spider-Man Homecoming has made a lot of money. I think maybe we should restructure this. And here we are now. So, without further ado, the continuation of Let's See Who Owns Spider-Man. So, the new deal will see Spider-Man and at least one, maybe two more Spider-Man movies that are being completely owned and created from Marvel. That means the third Spider-Man movie is already slated for July 21st, 2021. And all we know is that movie will follow the events of Spider-Man Far From Home, so we'll see what happens after the whole Mysterio, hey, Spider-Man's Peter Parker. What the And the third Spider-Man movie will bring back John Watts, the director of both Spider-Mans, Far From Home and Homecoming. Also, Tom Holland will reprise his role as Peter Parker / Spiderman. I mean, who else would have played Spider-Man? Elijah Wood? So the initial reports stated that Sony did not want to increase Marvel's profits. Now, Disney / Marvel did request a 50-50 split in the earnings of Spider-Man moving forward. But however, later reports did suggest that it was a 25 to 30%, I take more, you take a little bit less because, well, Marvel, we created Spider-Man. I mean, you just own him for a little bit. So you can see already, both sides, it's all about money, kids. It's a business, it's a game. I get it. Both are at fault, but let's move on. So, despite being a low number, it was still technically a really high number compared to the 5% profit that Marvel had on Spider-Man Homecoming and Spider-Man Far From Home. Especially since Disney receives all the merchandise revenues. I mean, merchandise off just any of the Marvel movies is a ton of money. However, though, like I said, the two companies did come together, and Disney now is going to get 25% of the profit as well as the merchandising revenue. So Disney is still making out like a bandit, but, Sony is still getting a little bit of the cut of it. They're just being like, okay, play with him for a little bit more, and then we're going to take him back home, okay? I wrote my name on the bottom as Foot, Sony. But, with all this business talk, it is kind of cool that we're going to see Spider-Man again kind of finish this really neat character arc that they set up in the MCU. I mean, he is the new Tony Stark. I mean, it's just going to be weird once this deal ends and it goes back to Sony and he'll be in the Venomverse. I still want to see that. But they're going to disregard everything that has happened completely in the Marvel movies once it goes back to Sony. But that does beg the question. Since Kevin Feige knows that this is going to end, do you think him and his team are slowly writing Spider-Man out of the MCU? Who knows? We just have to wait and see, kids. But Spider-Man Far From Home, Spider-Man Homecoming, these are great Spider-Man movies, and I'm just glad they got to be made, and we got to see a legit Spider-Man, the Spider-Man that we have read about since we were little chitlins, little kids. Although Sony did make, to be completely honest, my favorite Spider-Man movie, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. It was just the animated one. Fantastic movie, still very good. They know how to make the character, but I don't know, they need to take that team that made Into the Spider-Verse and just implement that into, a real life thing, a tangible thing, not the Spider-Man 3, hey girl, So Spider-Man, what do you guys think? What do you think on this new deal, this new plan, this new merger? It's going to end and it makes me sad. Let me know what you think in the comments below. And hey, if this is your first time here, please like and subscribe. Hit the notification bell to be notified of all future episodes. And yet again, you can always find me on Twitter and Instagram. I would greatly appreciate you following me on those because all this stuff I post as well on those two platforms whenever the news breaks. And until next time, guys, remember, he will always be your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, no matter what company he's attached to.